Hi everyone, welcome back to Fab-Health Live. Today we'll be interviewing my father. He owns a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, and yes, I work in it. It's actually a fun time working in a restaurant, but I have some good food safety questions laid out, and um, I'll interview him, and after the interview, I'll discuss some key takeaways that I took from it. So see you then, and on to the interview. Okay, thanks for being with me here today, Dad. Start off, tell me a little bit about your profession.
I own a restaurant. I run a restaurant. I work in a restaurant.
Um, and in your restaurant, what major food safety factors are you always looking out for during your workday?
Wow, there's so many. I'm constantly, cleanliness is number one. We're constantly cleaning everything, all surfaces. My hands get washed so many times. Sometimes people don't realize I answer the phone, I wash my hands because I touch the phone before I touch any food, or even if it's food that's going to be cooked and germs will be killed, etc. I still constantly wash my hands. That's number one. Surfaces. I'm always looking out for food that is not in the right temperature zone, keeping everything refrigerated properly. Those are the two big things: cleaning and the temperature of the food.
What seemingly unnecessary food safety rules do you always make sure to enforce?
There aren't any really unnecessary. Some of them are a hassle because you have to do them constantly, or some of them you don't have to do constantly. Like, for example, we have the Ansel system in the hood that sucks up the air. Every restaurant needs one if you're cooking over an open flame. Those are a pain to get cleaned, but it's necessary. So I don't really consider any of the rules of running a food establishment not necessary, even though some of them you are kind of annoying because you do them all the time. But then after a while, you get used to them. I've been doing them just this all my life, just about, so it comes naturally. But most people starting out in this business that have never been in this business, I think it's annoying to always, they might think we have OCD about cleaning, which it's a fabricated OCD because we need to be that vigilant in cleaning all the time. It's not an obsession. It should be the norm, which unfortunately not all restaurants follow.
What food safety guidelines do you commonly see broken or not followed?
In my restaurants, in my restaurant,
Yeah.
I hope none. We try to, but when I'm out and about, and I do eat out often, I see a lot of little things, and sometimes they're not such little things, and it kind of it bothers me to think that people run restaurants like they just don't care, And once again, getting back to the first question, cleanliness. I was out in a restaurant recently where they brought me a glass, and you could tell that it wasn't washed properly. They brought me another glass, and it had a little bit of still the lipstick on it from, obviously, so whoever's washing dishes there does not know how to wash dishes. But it's many little things that I see when I'm out and about, and it's kind of like I almost don't want to go eat out because I know what they should be doing to keep the restaurant sanitary, and when they're not, when it's obviously it's not being followed, the rules aren't being followed. It's kind of depressing. It's like it puts a damper on my evening when I'm out and about, and it happens often.
What's your opinion on the state of Pennsylvania not requiring restaurants to post letter grades? Unlike states like New York, when we go to New York City, we always see the letter grades in front of the restaurant.
Yeah, for those of you out there that don't know, in New York City, the Board of Health has a grade system. Like in school, if you do good, you get an A. If you do bad, it might be a C or a D. I don't know how far down it goes. I don't think it goes out to Z, but it gets pretty low. Maybe it's B or C. I don't know. I've never seen anything lower than a C or a D. But anyway, I have mixed feelings because there should be a system where people can see if the restaurant passes, and we already have that in Pennsylvania. If you have your license up on the wall, that means you've passed inspection. You're doing good. But to blatantly put a big letter A or B or C, that, I don't know. Because maybe, I mean, it might be okay. I don't know. I'm really conflicted when it comes to this because I feel like if I have, I've owned restaurants in the past before this law was in effect in New York City. And I know how the inspectors in New York can really nitpick at every little tiny thing that you would not imagine that they would look at, which it's good that they're looking, yes, they should keep all the regulations intact and everything, everyone following all the rules. That I understand. But sometimes you just might get an inspector that woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And because of his, whatever, you get where I'm headed at. So you might end up with a C or a B when you really should have gotten an A, and then it's posted right on your window. So I'm conflicted being a restaurant owner. I mean, I'm clean. I always, when the Board of Health inspection, when an inspector comes to my restaurant, I've always, in my entire life, I've never failed. So it's always done. I've always done well, but I'm kind of conflicted. I don't know, but I like the system we have in Pennsylvania. I think the other one's a little too in your face. But then again, that's New York. It's in your face. Like it, there's beautiful things in New York, and other things that are just a little too nutty. They're really in your face. And I lived there a long time, so I can. Well, go ahead.
And another question on the inspections. Do you believe that the current once a year inspections in our area are adequate for the restaurants around here?
Once again, it's a case per case. I mean, a restaurant like myself, they can pop in any time, any day of the week, any time of year, and they'll find it clean in November, December, October, January. It just doesn't matter. They will always find it very clean. A restaurant, it will always have all the foods properly stored on the proper shelf, properly tagged. I mean, but some other restaurants, I don't even think that would change the situation that I brought up before about, for example, the glasses. I think a lot of restaurants, a huge problem, and it's not just in Pennsylvania. It's all over really, where restaurants have such a hard time finding people to work that sometimes they hire people that shouldn't be anywhere near food, and the end result shows that I'm right. I mean, they just don't take care of the place. You walk into some restaurants, and the floors are filthy. Right when you're walking in, you're touching the door, and you could tell the glass is dirty. It's probably never been cleaned. Who knows? You look at the people and their nails you see my nails are always cut short, which you need to if you're dealing with food, even though some things you need to wear gloves and some things you can't touch directly with your hand if it's ready to eat food. But I think that's the major problem. I think it's because they're hiring people to fill spots that they must, if not, they'll close. There was a restaurant close by where the owner was a friend of mine, and he literally closed down his restaurant a few times because he could not find people to work. He just couldn't find people to work, and he wasn't a chef. He had to hire a chef. So when the chef couldn't make it or just took off for a weekend, he literally closed his restaurant. So I think it's a work shortage is a big problem.
All right, thank you so much, Dad. Good interview. Feel like I got a lot out of it, but I have some key points that I want to share. So, first of all, hand washing. Sorry, that's my sister. She's clapping if you can hear her. But hand washing. Hand washing is really important, of course, but not only that, but even hand washing when you touch something and it seems like, oh, I just touched that little thing, I don't need to wash my hands. When you touch the phone, when my dad touches the phone when an order comes in, he has to wash his hands again before he resumes making pizza because that's a lot of germs. You don't want that in your pizza. And although that pizza will be cooked in a 500-degree oven, there'll still be some bacteria on it, right? So yeah, even when you deal with food that will be cooked, you still need to have clean hands, as clean as possible. Fun fact, it's actually more safe to make pizza without gloves because it's actually going in the oven and it's easier. It's going in the oven and the germs, most of the germs will be killed anyway, and it's easier to wash your hands when you have gloves on. When you don't have gloves on. If you have gloves on, it's more difficult. I don't know, your gloves just kind of get dirty pretty easily, but it's better to make pizza without gloves on, surprisingly. Okay, so also, it's important to keep food out of the danger zone. Um, so the bacteria danger zone is 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's where bacteria thrives. That's where it replicates the most easily. And fridges are usually under 40 degrees Fahrenheit. In the restaurant, they have to be. Actually, when you cook something, it should, most of the time, it should be cooked over 140 degrees Fahrenheit, if not even higher, if it harbors a lot of bacteria. And this one I found really this one I found really surprising. So no food safety rules are actually unnecessary. Just some are a pain in the butt. But like my dad said, after so many years of working in the food safety and restaurant industry, he gets used to it. It's repetitive, but he's done it so many times that it's really not it's really not that difficult anymore. Also, some restaurants around here and around the world globally, they just don't follow food safety rules well. Um, like my dad said, he went out to a restaurant, stained glass, um, and my dad actually makes a really good point. Maybe there's just not enough people working in restaurants, so restaurants restaurant positions are just filled with people that shouldn't be really working in with food at all. Um, so having an inspection more than once a year, it won't really change restaurants because that it boils down to that big problem. The people we don't have people enough people who are adequately trained to work in the food industry that will work in it. Like my father said, a restaurant downtown. He had a friend who owned a restaurant downtown, and their chefs one Friday night they just walked out, and he never opened back up again, closed for good. But it's really interesting to see that a staff shortage of people who shouldn't like be near food at all, um, can cause inconsistencies in food safety guide and following food safety guidelines. Um, Also, New York's food safety grading system, it's not like Pennsylvania's. Um, when we go to New York City, we see in big colored letters if the restaurant's an A, a B, a C, or a D, um, based on their food safety, and they're really strict about it. So, um, if you get an F, of course you failed, and sure, in PA, in Pennsylvania, there's a way of showing if you passed or not. If you have your certificate, you passed, but that doesn't mean you passed with flying colors. Maybe it's better in New York because it tells you how clean the restaurant is, but the inspectors can be really nitpicky over there. And I don't know, maybe it encourages a restaurant to be more food safe. Maybe it's better that way because the restaurant's like, oh, we need to get an A because the person is going to see that and they're going to be like, oh, it's an A. Okay, that's a good restaurant. But also, I see that big problem is a person might walk by a restaurant and see a big C and they're like, oh, I'm not eating there. That place is dirty. When really it might have just made a few violations, a few stupid violations that could easily be fixed. Um, so, yeah, it leaves a bad first impression if you do bad on that New York grading test. But if you do good on it, it leaves a good first impression, I guess, which might lead some restaurants in New York to strive to do better with their food safety techniques. Um, but that's everything I have. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.